Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Man, it has been a while. We are here for the ODZwifters. I don't even know what to call this thing. The ODZwifters women's race here on Saturday morning, and a Zwift staple, a staple in the women's cycling community. Lots of exciting stuff to tell you about this morning, but we want to kick this off by inviting you to join us on social media to kick in your comments, your thoughts, your questions, and Jay Flo and I will answer them here live on this broadcast. Give us some likes, give us some love. Whatever icon or emoji you want to throw in here, we're happy to take it. We want you to respond on social media. Good morning, Jason. How in the world are you doing this morning?
I am super excited, Chris. I know we haven't been together or have been on a broadcast for a little bit, so I am really excited for today. I've got lots of stories to share. Lots have happened in the women's racing world on Zwift in our races, so I'm hoping that we can get that together and shared. We've got a good group of ladies here on course today. Everyone's right behind the beacon here. We're headed to the volcano, to the caldera, and this is going to get started up really quick, and you're going to see how far these ladies have come in the past couple weeks that you've been gone, Chris.
Excellent. And this race now, especially as we move into September and October, is going to mean much more in the women's racing community than it has in the past, and we'll break that down today. We've got some fabulous racers in this group that many of these names that you know, Holmichael, Pacala, Webster, we've got some, Conabear, we've got some names that you don't recognize, Kansas, Herzog, but you're going to recognize them after today. It's exciting. So tell us a little bit, Jason, about today's course. What do we have in store for these ladies?
Well, today we're doing 5 laps of the volcano, so definitely something that we have done before. It allows for the group to really get together at the beginning here. We don't see those explosive bumps as we've seen in the past, but we see the group really strategically put down efforts to get that front group kind of separated. We've seen both all the categories A through C make this front break, and we've seen this front break be a larger and larger group every week because everyone's just getting stronger every week. But this course allows for it because of how the flat circular nature that we have for it.
Now, as we look across the canvas of these riders, we, in the past, have seen really just kind of a hodgepodge, a coat of many colors, if you will, of racers. But this race, it seems to me that we are starting to see a little bit more of the blending of the jerseys, which should be scary if you have a jersey that doesn't match somebody else, but should be really exciting if you look across the group and you see someone wearing the same jersey. In previous races, we have had some team tactics. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what happened last time?
Yeah, so in the last 2, we've actually seen kind of a coming together, because a lot of times you'll get into a race, specifically a Zwift race, and you'll find yourself, even though you have your quote-unquote teammate with you, what happens is there's a lot of difficulty to kind of work together. But last week, PTZ really had a 1-2 punch sticking it to Team ODZ, which typically has numbers in this race, but they were able to kind of shake off a lot of riders and brought it down and whittled it down to about a 6-rider break. And they were really duking it out all the way to the finish. Team ODZ was able to put a rider at the very end out in the final 2K to put someone out in front and didn't chase, but PTZ really had the 1-2 punch. Unfortunately, today they do not have both of their star riders, Beth York and Inga Jansen, here. Inga is here, and I know she's going to be putting efforts out. You see her there in the front, right next to the beacon, right where she needs to be. But Beth York is actually outside doing a mountain climb today, looking for some exceptional weather. So she's actually out there today. So she only has, PTZ only has Inga Jansen here today representing their team.
Now, as we look at the riders right now, they are in this warm-up lap. And when they come around to the arch on the volcano lap, those of you who know this know it well, you will find that they will take off. So they are hanging close here and making sure that they are with Taya, who is our, of course, our ride leader of sorts, but also the person who, not only races, but gets that neutral start going. Now, I'm excited to talk about Beth York because there's some really exciting news related to her. Jason, I think that you know about, but I don't think the listeners do, and it's going to make for a very interesting September in lots of ways, and we'll kick that down the road just a little bit. We call that a tease in the biz. I'm not really in the biz, but if I were in the biz, that would be a tease, and we'll pay that off here in just a little bit. But we're getting a nice preview of the course. If you're not as familiar with the volcano criterium, as some of us like to call it, this is the section we're moving into. Really the only true variation where I think exciting things can happen. Now, there are little moments here and there where the things kick up, but that's not nearly as dramatic as this section of the course right here. A big drop down of about 40 feet, and then very shortly here, the long big climb back up in. Now, that is the climb to the finish, which is where a lot of interesting things can happen. Now, the laps that we do, we're gonna have to be really careful about the laps that we do, Jason, here. We're counting those down. You and I have a history of not always counting laps properly. The commissar is with us today. He won't let us get too far down the road, I'm sure. But in a moment, we're going to hand over to the commissar here, who's going to do the work of letting the ladies in the chat know that we are a go, and letting everybody, of course, on the broadcast know that we are a go. Now, how many laps are we doing today, Jason?
5 laps today, 5 laps. And one new addition to our group and with the commissar is on the final lap, we actually have our cowbell ringing, and it reminds all the riders and everyone in Discord that it is 1 lap to go, 1 lap to go, 1 lap to go. So we should have that in the program today. So we've got a couple new things for the riders in here just to keep everything, them not feeling dizzy going around and not having to look at that counter as we come by.
Now we see the ride leader, Taya Freestead, right here, making sure that they don't get too far up the road. We see a buffalo bike in the group. That is exciting. We've got brothers in here. It says age 9. Now we're going to find out a little bit more about her in just a moment here, but it looks like they're coming back together. This is the dangerous spot when you do a neutral rollout, because if you're excited, you're not paying attention, you're calling to your other to bring you a water bottle. I need a quick water bottle. It's easy to roll off the front, roll off the back, but they've got to stay right here with the beacon. That is that spinning, beautiful gold chevron over the head of Taya Freestead, to make sure that they are behind that beacon at the go. And as we look over her shoulder, we see that they're a little bit strung out, but they're going to come together as they push toward this line up here. Now, only one rider really meaningfully off the front. We have Subaru. I'm assuming that that's a language barrier that's given her that 1.5 minute chunk off the front. But we're coming up to the arch here, and we're going to hand this over in just a second to our commissar to give us this official start. But we're looking forward to a 5-lap beautiful race, and I think that is going to start in just a moment. Taya Freestead on the front, ready to kick this off, and we throw it to our commissar.
Go, 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 ladies. 5 laps. Go, go, go.
Thank you very much, our commissar. Make sure that all the good things are happening as it relates to fairness here. Taya Freestead with a big push off the front. We see these big spikes in watts coming up here, and we know that the women are working hard. Where you are in this group, it's already starting to trail off. They're a little bit in the back. Where you are is so important. We've seen it in previous races, Jason, where somebody has missed this initial move. It might have seemed like a completely reasonable gap, and they were sitting on the wheel of what they thought was a strong rider, and then all of a sudden, 2 seconds from Katronis to Pakala, and that could be a dangerous move. What are you advising your coaching candidates here to do in these opening stages of the race, Jason? What is most important?
What's most important here is I'm following actually Kirsten Katronis, is that she closes that gap. One thing to remind the riders as they're trying to close this is getting into view 3, Chris. View 3 allows us a third-person view that gets you into the gap, and looks like Kirsten has closed it. Awesome. And so what we've done is tell people to get into the zone, into their avatars, to make sure that they are as close as possible to close that gap. And that's what I'll be telling riders, and make sure that they made it. And it looks like we've got a good group of of like 10 or 12 riders here, Chris, that have made this front group.
Yes, it is. And it looks like they've come back just a little bit. We've got Kansas, the KISS rider, on the front, pushing harder than anybody else right now. But we are on board with Kirsten Katronis right now. You're talking about that view 3 that is on the keyboard, that view 3 that puts the camera in the eyes of the avatar so that you can see things the way that they do. And as we look at this, you can see the relationships much better between avatar and the rider in front of you. Now, as we look back over her shoulder, or even the tighter view here, she's sitting tightly on the back here. You can kind of get a sense, but nothing is nearly as valuable as this first view right here. The view 3, as we call it, as Katronis comes to the front here and takes over the front a little bit. She backs off just a hair because she doesn't want to be there. Kansas with another big dig. Ooh, bumps it up to almost 9 watts per kilo. Gets a little bit of a gap. And as we sit on board here, that's a cagey move here at the beginning. We don't know a lot about her. What can you tell us about Kansas and her work in the past here?
Well, actually, Kansas is a new rider for us. She hasn't ridden any races with us here per se, but I am pulling up her Zwift Power now, so I should have some information here on her shortly, Chris.
Yeah, she's flying that KISS banner in her title. That doesn't necessarily mean that she is a KISS team rider. She just does those events that it may happen to be in her title from here. She's not wearing what I would assume to be a standard KISS jersey, but she has gotten a nice little gap here, and the group is responding, but slowly. She's doing 5 watts per kilo. That group is hovering around 4, bouncing in and out here. They're 6 seconds back now, and that's a big gap at this stage of the race. Now, she's getting ready to come down this downhill section. There's a lot of racing left to go here, but as she comes around outside, about to go under the second arch here, to dropping down the hill into the flat section outside, she has this 7-second gap to the group. And there is the perfect view for us to see. You see the beautiful cone, not of shame, but of pride, worn by Taya Freestead, our ride leader. We can see where the group is, and we can see where Kansas is as well. She's got a nice little gap holding 4.5 watts per kilo, 175 beats per minute in the heart rate. That is a lot on the first lap. Is this something that she can hold? It doesn't look like the gap is holding. That group will be able to travel much faster than she will, down to about 4 seconds now, and they're doing about a watt less per kilo. They're starting to string out a little bit. Let's actually take a quick peek over the shoulder of Pacala, who's doing a great job hanging in this group. They're starting to reel her back. What she does on this uphill should make a big difference, but we won't know until we get there. This early in the race, what is the value, Jason, of an attack like that by a rider?
So what it does is allow riders to kind of get a feel for the tempo that the group will be holding. For example, if someone were to get off and give a small type of burst, like the way I'm on with Carol Scott here as she moves herself to the front, it allows riders to see that name saying, hey, this person is going to be doing work today. They are here. They are serious. As she pushes up the hill, 6.0 Kansas up there, they are trying to chase her down, letting the other riders know that they are going to keep the pressure on today, Chris.
And Scott really is one of those leading the front. Jansen saying we're going to pull her back right now, the PTZ rider. And Kansas still holding a little bit of a gap, but as we look over her shoulder, she's entered the caldera. You see the group come around the corner. They are really close here. Now, it's stretched out just a little bit, as it will on the hill. Of course, we've talked about it many times. The advantage goes to the rider in the front as they pick up their speed as they crest the top of a hill, while the other group is forced to go a little bit slower because they're going uphill. You can expand that gap just a little bit, which is why it's so important at the bottom of those little risers and hills to push as hard as you can to keep that speed up and limit the amount of gap distance that forms when you have that exchange, if you will, over the top. Now she comes around, 4 laps to go. Thank goodness. I love this course because of that lap counter. As the rest of the group comes around, 4 laps to go, we're looking over the shoulder of Jansen. Now Subaru was off the front, but she's managed to make her way back to the group. I don't know if she realized that there was no one else around her. We'll talk about her and maybe with the commissar just a little bit later. But we see the group not really formed completely. And now it looks like Kansas has a 13-second gap. gap, drilling it at 5.0. Again, that heart rate at 179, 178 beats per minute says hard work. But you know what? Taya Freestead here sitting on the front of this group saying, is there anybody who's willing to bridge this up with me? Doing an equally high heart rate, 185 here in this group. It's time for this group, I would think, to really put in some organized effort here. Now, at 3.5 to 4 watts per kilo is still hard work, but what they need, Jason, don't they, is somebody at the front willing to push even a little bit harder and actually create that closing speed. What's the play here for the group?
So the play here is, at this point, what they need to do is look around and find out, hey, 10 seconds is not, we are going to need to bring this down, and they're going to need to get up and do about 4.5 on the front here and really put the jerseys away for now. We've talked about this in the past couple races, where there's this neutral part of the race where everybody may be chasing a break like this, and they need to kind of put their allegiances aside in order to kind of put themselves out there, put themselves in the wind, put their nose out there to get this group closed. They got it down to about 10 seconds, but it's kind of hovering. And at 5.0, Chris, they're going to need to do close to 4.7 on the front to pull this. We know that the group does have the advantage here, but they need to work together and they need to stick together like glue. But they do have some riders up front, and they do have that rider from earlier with this group. But Carrie Conover, and the likes of Taya Freestead need to get on the front and really push this if they're going to close this gap.
You're right, they are, and it's up to 13 seconds right now. Now, as we teased at the beginning of the show, these races very quickly are going to start to mean something a little bit more. And we're really excited to announce that this, which has become the staple of the women's racing community, every 2 weeks, really twice a month here on Zwift Live, you can jump in and watch the best women in Zwift face off. Well, Zwift knows this and knows that these women gather here and has assigned a special designation to this race. Can you talk just a little bit more about what that is and what we can look forward to in the next 6 weeks?
Absolutely, Chris. So really exciting. I think we're going to see a huge boom in not just this race, but women's riding in general. What's coming up, or what we're kind of teasing, is Zwift Academy. So Zwift is actually activating Zwift Academy a little bit later in the season this year, and so it's starting on September 1st. And so what we'll be able to see is a whole range of women racing, riding, working out together during this 6-week challenge in order to prove themselves to move on to the next stage. And with great news to us and to announce is that the ODZwifters ladies race is going to be included in one of the races that will be used to qualify riders for the Zwift Academy. So what that allows is that if this works in their time zone and the riders that we see during this race, we should see an influx of all kinds of riders of all levels at this race, and it's really going to perk up over the next 6 to 8 weeks.
That's fabulous. Now, for those who are unaware of what the Zwift Academy is, specifically for women's racers, it is an opportunity to prove yourself and to actually be able to be invited to come together for a live camp over the winter in North America and participate in this wonderful camp with the opportunity to actually get a professional contract. So women will be coming here as part of their requirements in Zwift Academy, which includes a number of things, including very specific workouts, but these races and wherever they finish can qualify them for the next stage in the Zwift Academy. Zwift has assigned the special designation to this race as a qualifier for that event. Now, we're not seeing a huge change in the lead here. They're still 12 seconds back, certainly capable of reeling them back. I'll be very interested to see what the group does on the climb here. They really should put in much more than they have in the past. It was down to about 12 seconds a moment ago, 11, 10, but that's very misleading on a climb like this because we know that it tends to open back up at the top. She's doing 6.0. This group is doing 4.5. This gap is going to grow as we come up and over. Kansas is already up to speed here, doing 24 miles an hour on the Caldera inside. The group, including Alice Alexander, with a little bit of a gap here, actually has started to pull back this group. If we look over her shoulder, we're going to see that that group is really trailing on. It's great to see Alice in this group. What a strong, consistent ODZwifters or ODZwifters racer. She's been with us since the very, very beginning. So as you look at this chase group, which I think is a really meaningful, strong chase group, what history do we have with these riders in this group? Who's here and who's dangerous?
So with this group, I did mention earlier, Inga Jansen has always been a huge force in this group to kind of drive it. And of course, we have Tia Friesed with the Beacon. Alice Alexander has typically and always been an effort, but we have to remember that her and Carol Scott are both B riders in this group. So they are trying to put themselves in position. But we do have a kink in this plan, because the top 3 riders for B are actually in this group. So the top 3 spots are in this chase group. So as far as powers, we've got Carrie Conabear here with us. We've got Inga Jansen. I think those two from BRT and PTZ can really push this effort. And they have pushed a little bit ahead here, and these 4, and they're going to try to go at it alone here with Taya to try to close that gap. I do have a little bit more information on her actually name is Katie Kansas. It's a 29-year-old female from Turks and Caicos Island. I'm not exactly sure where that is. I'll have to look that up too. But she is on a smart trainer, and there you go. She's on a smart trainer and riding a Trek Endomondo. So definitely has the equipment, the lightweight equipment to make this stick. She definitely has a 20-second gap here, really putting lots of effort, but this group has got to work together. So really motivating. They're pushing as hard as they can. I really see 4.0 plus coming from most of the front riders. So sometimes we do get riders that kind of slip away here, Chris, and it looks like this is a gap that's sticking quite well so far.
It is. You know what? And I've been the author of disasters like this in the past, where I won't know a rider very well, and I'll be the ill patron in the group that says, let him go, let him go. It's too early. And we completely, as a group, and I'm to blame for it, misjudge the strength of a single rider. And when the gap gets strong enough, if we don't have the willingness in the group for whatever reason, bad night's sleep, hard training week, left leg doesn't like the right leg today, whatever the problem is, we just can't as a group put it together enough horses to chase back a big enough gap. And this 20-second gap may be the breaking point for this, which is really, really cool. Kansas doing a nice job on the front here. But that group back there, you mentioned this mix of A riders and B riders, and as we come through the Caldera here, we see that Subaru tries to get off the front here, pull that back a little bit. Nobody goes with her. We see this group of Alexander and Jansen and Conabear, Herzog, these different folks in there in that group, just making sure that they are together. Those B riders that you mentioned, Pakala and Alice Alexander, are they thinking to themselves, look, I want a podium here. I don't want a B podium. I want a flat podium here. What's the thinking here? Or are they looking around at the other B riders saying, you know what, I just got to beat her?
Yeah, and so a lot of times what we'll find is in the final run-in, because as I click around and I look at all the B riders, they are on the rivet, Chris. So they're just looking around to make sure that they are still within the mix. If they see one of the 3 spots kind of fade off or kind of get dropped from this group, a little bit of stress is kind of taken away from them, because they know that they have secured one of the 2 spots here in this front group. So I typically don't, or we don't typically see the B riders putting in huge efforts here towards the end, and really depending on the draft of the A riders, just because they're so far off on the rivet.
Yeah, well, you know what? Let's give you a quick rundown here, something we always promise to do. If you're following and you're like, where is my favorite rider? Let's tell us where they are. Our top 10 is Katie Kansas, Inga Jansen, Carrie Conabear, Tia Friesed, Herzog, Senya Pakala, Stephanie Holmichael, Kirsten Katronis, Alice Alexander, and Carol Scott. That is your top 10 here. After that, we have Klaas. the Belgian rider. We have Frost, Asari, who we've seen many, many times. Haberman, the strong B rider. Webster, Bonafrankenham. Tell me her first name again. Why is it escaping me?
Tina.
Tina. Thank you very much. We've got brothers in here. Nell, who I don't know, the sea rider very well. And then rounding out the top 20 is Kala and Subaru, who is actually showing at the back here, and Walker, who doesn't look like they actually left the pen here. But that is a big, strong 20 group, and we'll jump back into the group and see where those other finishes are right here. Now, 24 seconds is the gap as we come up to the hill here. The group deciding whether they're going to make a big move to chase her down. Doesn't look like it. It looks like they're hanging in here. And as we come up and over this hill, we certainly don't want to miss any significant moves that are happening in this group. Inga Jansen wanting to lead this. Alice Alexander actually putting in a nice dig. Again, as a B rider, she's got a little cagey opportunity here to maybe create some separation between her and Pakala in this group. As both B riders, there's a real advantage here to kind of staying near the front and hoping that a split happens in the group. If you can gain a split and you're on the right side of the split, you can force your competitors on the other side of the split into some difficult decisions, can't you, Jason? They either have to be the one to close that gap, however small it is, whether it be 5 meters or 5 seconds, or they have to whip the others around them to do a little bit more. But either way, you're going to do more work to close a gap that opens up. What's your thought here when you're looking around the group and a little gap opens? What do you do?
So a lot of times what I try to typically do, or I recommend, is you need to kind of see how far that gap goes. But the thing about the game is that you need to make sure that you got that gap closed. So it's kind of a trick, because a lot of times you'll get surges, but they'll come back very quickly, because if everybody's on the rivet, a lot of times you won't get a long surge. So you'll give it a couple seconds, but if it starts to stick, you've really got to get on top of it right away. So anything more than a couple seconds, you've got to go.
Yeah, and my strategy historically is to whip others into shape and start sled dogging, mostly because I am much better in the draft than I am on the front, and anybody who's raced with me will tell you that. But that is not the strategy that everybody else employs, thank goodness, because you'd have some gaps that get pretty ugly pretty quick. We're the nice chase view right here. This is a lot of fun to watch on camera here, and if you're joining us, this is just a fun race to pay close attention to here. Okay, so we mentioned the conspicuous absence of one Beth York. Now you have a little bit more knowledge about what she's doing outside. Do you want to explain that a little bit?
Yeah, I'm going to pull up the state. I'm going to pull up exactly her event right now. I have her Facebook up, but go ahead and do your announcement, and then I'll come back around. Yeah.
Okay, so so many of you have followed the CVR events in the past. There's been a CVR event, well, in Richmond. It was called something different there, Las Vegas, and then beautiful London. I got the opportunity to call it with my buddy Nathan Guerra, and we got to go over to London and call that event. Really great women's race there. Well, CVR is not done by any stretch of the imagination and has announced Paris. That's right, we're going to be at the National Velodrome in really just outside of Versailles, which is very close to Paris, and going to have that event there. And it has been announced, Nathan is not available. He's doing something for Zwift, I think in Australia. But on the desk, calling all of these live events, will be Beth York and myself. We are your commentary crew for CVR Paris, and really looking forward. She is a broadcast veteran. If you don't know her work, Google her. She'll kill me for telling you this, but she's got some demo reels of all of the stuff she's done in front of camera. Lots of great interviews and news magazine and reporting. She's a really esteemed producer, live television producer, has done stuff for years. and has, of course, been an on-camera talent. But she and I will be able to call the action, interview the riders, and really be a big part of that broadcast that'll come to you from Paris. I'll throw in a little bit more about this, and we'll jump back to the action in the race. Thankfully, our riders are settled down here and in a position where I can tell you a little bit more about this. But there are going to be many more CVR races than there have previously been. There will actually be qualifying races for the finals in the days early in that week. Now, we'll be there all of the second week of September, something from the September 12th through the 17th. But we've got events on the 15th and 16th, which will broadcast live. And I understand that Zwift Live will be one of the partners that will broadcast those, but many other networks as well. And it's going to be expanded coverage, breakdown of previous races. You're going to get to see these racers at different angles. And again, it is center track on the French National Velodrome. It is going to be unbelievably exciting, and I'm really excited to call that with Beth, and we're going to be able to do that together. I'm really excited about the women's racing there because there are some outstanding riders coming across. We'll give you some more of those announcements a little bit later, but wanted to definitely kick that out to you. What do you think about that, Jason? How cool is that?
That is amazing. Having Beth York on that stage is going to be great. It's going to bring an energy that we haven't seen, you know, as far as commentary here on Zwift. And I think between you and her, I think the dynamic is going to be great. She is awesome on camera. She is awesome on interviews. I think it's going to be great. And about her real event, she's actually out doing the Mount Washington Auto Road bicycle hill climb. It's 7.6 miles straight up into the sky at 4,700 feet of climbing over that 7.6 miles at a 12% gradient. And so that's happening this morning. They're probably up and at 'em already. So she's had some challenges on her trip, but she is fired up, and I know she's really excited about that. And we are really excited about her being added to CVR.
Excellent. Yeah, it's going to be really, really cool. She brings a lot of experience and class and character to everything she does. I'm going to be honest, I'm going to miss Nathan. That was really fun to do that broadcast with him. It was nice to get to spend time with him and get to kind of work out some of those cool, exciting things that we got to talk about during that. But I think it's going to be great with Beth as well. I'll be excited to see what Nathan and Simon are doing, I think, in Australia during that time. So we'll announce the riders coming up here. They're already starting to come out a little bit. There's a contest right now that launches today that gives anybody who's interested in CVR an opportunity to win an Alienware Alpha R2 gaming computer that they can Zwift with, and tons of other prizes. Basically, all you have to do is click in and like some things or follow someone on Twitter to get some entries here. Now, we are coming up to the meat of this race. We can see the arch to go with one to go. These riders have been really, really steady, but I think things are about to break apart. What is going to happen here as we get close to this with now a minute gap to Kansas?
Yeah, so the minute gap to Kansas on this course is really, really difficult as we come into our final lap. The ladies are going to really need to look around and kind of figure out what they're going to do. But what we typically see in this...
yeah, there it is. Commissar with the bell. One to go.
So what we typically see here in this final lap is a huge ramp of the velocity that they'll be moving kind of into this final bump. And as we pointed out, as we ran into the final climb here, that's usually where it happens. So we're talking about 1,700, 1,500 kilometers out. It's a long way to go, but we've seen riders take it from the bottom of the little bump all the way to the finish clock. So we're going to see how that happens. I do not see any riders at this point that haven't been on the rivet or have been kind of on the wheels enough to be able to do that sort of move. So I have a feeling it's going to happen where you called it, right on the crest of that climb. If anyone were to attack, if the group were all together at the crest of that climb before the finish banner is where it's going to happen, they're going to need to bury themselves all the way to the line.
All the way to the line, indeed. Now, I did not notice this, but it looks like Carol Scott has attacked off the back. She did it so delicately that no one even noticed and no one covered her. But it looks like she's back off the back about 2 minutes at this point, but we see some interesting things happening at the front of this chase group here. There's a possibility of some lapping happen here. Tina probably is going to have to push a little bit harder. Frankenheim a little bit up there in the front, the KRT rider, so that she doesn't get lapped. Sometimes the race is just not to be in a certain position at the end, you know, to not be the last rider or to not get lapped by the leader. It depends on it. Now, in cyclocross, I look forward to the opportunity to be lapped by the leaders because it means I have one less lap of suffering. Maybe that's the wrong attitude. Maybe that gives you a lot of insight about my success in cyclocross, but I digress. As we follow the group here, you've got some really clever people hanging on the back here, some strong riders. Carrie Conabear, the BRT rider, really sitting kind of at the back of this group saying, I'm not going to take the front of this. But, you know, Taya Freestead making sure that she's up near the front. Inga Jansen always up near the front. As I say that, Carrie says, that's not me. I'm moving to the front. Maybe it was just a casual drift back that happens. But you want to find that right wheel. Now, they are pushing harder, but not nearly as hard as they were in the front lap. This is not an attack, a move. As we look, you know, again, we can see things in virtual racing that we can't see in traditional racing, namely watts per kilo. And if it spikes into that orange, that beautiful Zwift orange, we see it and we go, oh, that person is working really, really hard. As I've raced before, you've done it too. Maybe you can talk about this, Jason. Sometimes you stop watching the cyclists, the avatars in the middle of the course, and you start looking at the watts per kilo. Do you ever do that?
Yeah, there's been a really interesting conversation in the community about this, and a lot of times I do find myself kind of, especially at this pointy end of the race, making sure that I am matching the watts per kilogram of those riders around us. But the conversation in the community kind of goes like this. Why should we be able to see those watts per kilogram? It's kind of cheating because you can't really see that in the real world. But the counter talk to that is, but in the real world, you'd be able to hear people you'd be able to see their body attitude, the clicks of their gears, and kind of their swaying of their shoulders. So all those things are kind of traded off into this virtual trade-off one-for-one. So really, this tool right here is what we have equal to, is the guy next to us or is the rider next to us kind of breathing really hard. So yeah, I look at this all the time.
Yeah, you know, it's very true. And the solution that I have, and maybe not everybody does this, is I run 10 Garmins and I secretly pair other people's equipment to my 10 Garmins on my bike. So I always know what everybody else is doing. You know, because that's completely practical, or it's not at all. Of course, I'm kidding. So we're coming up here. This is the big finish. As soon as they hit the bottom of that climb, it is all out. It's about 1K to go from that point. And we see Inga Jansen, a little bit of a harder push on the front, holding 5.5 watts per kilo. Carrie Conabear up there kind of drifting over. She really technically has the lead, only for a second there. And they sit right there. Now, I'm going to switch to a different view here so we can see some action. Now, this only works if Inga Jansen stays on or near the front here, and I think that she's going to do that. Just quick, before we go to the big finish here, Jason, what do you think the big finish is going to look like here? Who are the riders we have to pay attention to as we come up this hill?
I'm looking at Inga Jansen and Taya Freestead kind of slugging this out into the final two finish. They've got great climb abilities. Both of them have got really strong legs. Right as we hit this 4%, you see both of those riders moving towards the front here. Exactly what we see them do every year, every race. And Carrie Conabear, they're not letting that happen, but those are the two riders that I'd have to pick.
Whoa, here we come to the big finish here, and Carrie Conabear in this chase group has decided that she's going to do the big push, and she has a big gap on everybody else. More than 2 seconds now back to Inga Jansen. She's slow to respond here. Maybe she doesn't have it in her legs, but there's excitement happening at the front here. Carrie Conabear has a big gap over the rest of this group. Now, this is the chase group. This is the race for second, but it looks like she is going to just run away with this. Now, Alice Alexander is the best person to catch her, but she's not doing nearly the watts per kilo. She's going to come away with a coup here, isn't she? The B rider is going to take the 3rd position overall in this, unless Taya can close the gap, and it looks like she might be able to. This is a big, exciting finish. Looks like Alice is going to get under the banner before her. Very, very nice job as the rest of the group comes under with 0 laps to go here. Inga Jansen drifts through the back. She did her work early and often, and can be very proud of her finish as she rolls across before Senya Pakala. What an exciting finish here to this race, Jason. My goodness, is that the way you thought it would turn out?
Yeah, with a lot of surprises in this race. With Katie Kansas coming into the mix, it really threw kind of a wrench in everything that happens. But you know what? That is what happens when you get these unknown riders. Definitely need to watch out for her. And obviously now we've got a tick on her name for the future races. This is her first time with us. But Carrie Conover with a breakthrough performance, coming through and making that huge move right where we were talking about where it would happen, right over that crest. And then Alexander, my gosh, as a B rider riding that far off the front, man, strong legs. Talk about being on the bubble. Definitely those top 3 riders are riders to look out for as we head into the Zwift Academy and September, where everything's going to be really lit on fire.
It is. You know what? And you talk about someone like Alice, and we say, well, she's a B rider, and you know what? Her motor may be a B, but her mind clearly is an A. And as we kind of just settle into the finish discussion of this event here, I think we need to highlight that top 3 again. Kansas, Conover, and Alexander. But Jason, who fills out the rest of that top 10?
What I have here is coming in 4th place, I've got our ride leader, Taya Friedstedt. Our 5th place position is Michelle Herzog, Kirsten Katronis in 6th, Sarah Hall-Michael in 7th, Inga Jansen in 9th, and then Senja Pakala rounding out the top 10 riders of today's ODZwifters ladies race.
Excellent. What a great race it was today, too. This is so much fun to see these women doing this amazing work. And we're always really, really glad to be able to bring this to you. It's so, so much fun. And as we close here, I think that the race recap follows kind of this story. Great breakaway by Katie Kansas early. People didn't know what to expect from her, and she got a gap. That gap was 10 seconds, then it was 25, then it was a minute, and it was a race for 2nd place. As we kind of jump out to the community voice, people love this race. Really cool things being thrown out there. Any comments that really kind of stick out to you, Jason?
No, just a bunch of thumbs up and hearts and hugs. We've got our rookie rider, Kristen Green, that's taking some time off and getting some rest today. We've got our normal Team ODZ, Johan Mulder, Victoria Williams, a Zwift Academy rider, and BJ Alfonso. What I feel is the director of PTZ out there.
That's right.
Is very, very happy. I'm sure that that his rider got into that top 10 slot. I'm sure he's very, very happy.
The director sportif. We love PJ. He also is a broadcaster. We love doing stuff with him as well. So thanks to the community for sharing stuff. Now, on the horizon, we've got another one of these races coming up pretty quick. September what, Jason?
It would be it's the weekend of Labor Day here in the U.S., so it would be it would be the 3rd of September.
3rd of September, that's when you can join in this race again. Now, there's lots of things to check out in all different forms across the web. You know what? You can check out Zwift Live for more of the stuff that we do here for as far as a broadcast schedule. Lots of exciting things happening. We are done with our time, and we want to say goodbye to everybody else. So thank you for joining us today. Thanks for everyone who contributed to this broadcast. It is always fun to be here with my guy and to bring you this race. So thanks to everyone. We'll see you soon.